Hello and welcome back to Chapter 4 Notes. And so in this lecture video, we're going to be covering cost volume profit analysis and applications of CVP and looking at break-even and target profit analysis. Okay. So in terms of applications of CVP analysis, we could ask questions, and look at the impact on profit to say, what if we increase unit sales from 500 to 540 by increasing advertising? What would be the impact on profit if we use higher quality raw materials, which increases variable cost by $10? Is this a good idea? And of course, it's a good idea if it increases our profit. That's the decision. Okay. So this is our original scenario. And what I call it the long way. We're going to solve each one of these problems the long way. And when I say the long way, what I mean is by using the profit equation. And then you can see what I have over here. Solve each problem using incremental analysis, which would be the shortcut way. And with incremental analysis, as we'll see, we'll be looking at changes in contribution margin and changes in fixed costs, and then just calculating the profit impact that way. Okay. Again, getting back to what I said in an earlier lecture video, just about everything that we do in this chapter with CVP can be done using the profit equation. So some of these shortcuts don't make very much sense. Remember the profit equation, okay? We say over here, what's the profit impact if we increase sales from 500 to 540? So then that means my sales units goes to 540. And then remember what I'm assuming, we're still using that same example, is that my price per unit stays the same, my variable cost per unit stays the same, and my contribution margin per unit stays the same, and my total fixed cost of $80,000, which we'll see will change, okay? But I don't see anything here about changing my sales price, and so that means that my sales price stays constant at $500. So $500 times 540 would give us $270,000. I don't see anything up here about my variable expenses changing per unit, so I can still assume that variable expenses per unit have not changed. They stay the same at $300 per unit. And that's what we know, right? Until we're told otherwise, variable cost per unit stay the same. So I take my 300 times my 540, and that gives me 162. Then to get my contribution margin, I subtracted. That gives me my 108. And it says I increase advertising by $10,000. Advertising is a fixed cost. So that means my fixed costs go up from $80,000 to $90,000. Then I subtract the two, and I get net operating income of $18,000. So is this a good idea? No, because look, net income went down by $2,000 by doing that. And that's answering the question. And the question says, what's the profit impact? What's the change in profit? The right answer is decreased by $2,000 from $20,000 down to $18,000, decreased by $2,000. If I said, what is the profit? The answer is $18,000. Asking you what's the profit impact, which is a decrease of $2,000. Okay. Let's look at the second one. What's the profit impact if we use higher quality raw materials? That increases variable cost by $10, and sales go from 500 to 580. So now I have units of 580, and I don't see anything about my sales price changing, so it still stays the same at 500. So I can take my 580 times my 500, which gives me my 290. Now, my original here, my variable expenses per unit is $300, and it says it increases by 10, so it goes to 310. My per unit, my variable expense is 310. 310 times my 580, 179, 800. Then I subtract the two to get my contribution margin, 110, 200. So again, each one of these we're comparing against the baseline scenario, so I don't see anything in this scenario about fixed costs changing, so I'm assuming it stays constant at the 80,000. I'm not comparing it, not saying this scenario against this scenario, and saying this scenario against the baseline. Okay, so fixed costs did not change. They stay the same at 80,000. So now I subtract it, I get 30,200. Is this a good idea? Yeah, because the profit impact is an increase of $10,200. Okay. Let's look at this next one. What's the profit impact if we cut the selling price $20? Increase advertising by 15, and increase unit sales from 500 to 650. So in this case, now I get $650. Okay. Now this does affect the selling price. Where it was $500, it goes down by 20, so now it's $480. So I take my $650 times my $480, gives me about $312,000 in total sales right there. I don't see anything about my variable expenses changing per unit, so it stays constant at 300. So $650 times the $300 variable expenses per unit. Remember, that's what we had over here. $300 variable expenses per unit would give us a total variable expenses of $195. I can then subtract the two to give me a contribution margin of $117. And then it does say that I increased my advertising by $15,000. So now that means fixed costs went from $80,000, they went up $15,000 to $95,000. And I subtract my contribution margin. I subtract my fixed costs from my contribution margin. Gives me profit of $22,000. Profit impact is it increased by $2,000. Is this a good idea? Yeah, it's still a good idea. It's not the best idea so far. The best idea, assuming the elasticity of demand and all these other assumptions built in, is option 2, because that increases profit that much, the most. Okay. So look at the next one. What's the profit impact if we pay a $15 commission per bike rather than paying salespeople salaries that total $6,000 per month? And then that increases unit sales from 500 to 575. Now this option makes a lot of sense also from a strategy standpoint, because you're reducing what we call the agency problem. Basically, you're reducing goal conflict between the managers of the firm and then the employees that work for the firm. There's agency theory assumes an inherent goal conflict. I'll be a little bit cynical and I'll say, okay, the owners of the firm want the employees to work as hard as they can for as least amount of money. The employees, on the other hand, again, I'm being a little bit cynical here, they want to work the least amount that they can and maximize their salary. So there's an automatic goal conflict. So by paying people's salespeople commissions rather than salaries, you're reducing that conflict, because the more that they sell, the more the owners make, and the more the salespeople make. So it becomes a win-win situation for the owners of the firm and the salespeople who are employees of the firm. Okay? So getting back to the point, this becomes 575. We don't see anything about our sales price changing, so it becomes 575 times the 500, which is our 287,500. This does increase. This is an extra variable expense. Okay? Commissions is a variable expense, so it goes from 300 to 315. 315 times my 575 gives me my 181, 125. And I can subtract the two to give me my contribution margin. Okay? 106, 375. Now, it says I decrease my salaries by $6,000 per month. Salaries are a fixed cost, so it goes from $80,000, decreased by $6,000, so therefore it becomes $74,000. And then I subtract the two, and I get my $32,375. This gives us the highest net operating income, so therefore that would be the best option. Okay? So again, this is kind of doing it the long way. Let's go ahead and do all these the shortcut way using incremental analysis. Okay? So if we look at this first one, what's the profit impact if RBC increases unit sales from 500 to 540? So I can come over here with incremental analysis. I'm going to be looking at my change in my contribution margin. So in this case, I have an increase in contribution margin, which is equal then to our 40 bikes, because we sold an additional 40 bikes, and we don't see anything about our sales price changing. We don't see anything about our variable expenses changing per unit. So therefore, we can assume that contribution margin per unit is still $200. So I can take my 440 times my $200, which equals my $8,000, right? Equals my $8,000. Okay, and then what I do is I have my increase in my fixed costs, which is my $10,000, that means my profit, my NOI, decreased by $2,000. This is the profit impact. So again, what we're doing here with incremental analysis is we're looking at changes in contribution margin, changes in fixed costs, and then using that to calculate the impact on profit. So this is giving us the impact on profit. This option gave us the profit. You can calculate the impact just by subtracting. And you can calculate the profit by saying, okay, the original was $20,000, went down by $2,000, so the new profit would be $18,000. This is giving you the impact on profit. Okay? So this one, let's look at the second one in terms of our shortcut way. We use higher quality raw materials, increases variable expenses per unit. So in this case, we have to say our old contribution margin, or original, is $100,000. Okay? You can say our new contribution margin is going to be equal to our 580 units. Okay, 580 units. And then what is my new contribution margin per unit? Well, it's going to be 500 minus 310, because originally here, remember, contribution margin per unit is 300. It increases by 10 to 310. So 580 minus 310 gives us a contribution margin of 190. Okay, which gives us our 110, 200. So then we subtract the 2, and we have our increase in CM equal to 10,200. We don't have any impact or anything to do with our fixed costs, so this 10,200 increase in CM is also equal to our increase in NOI. Okay? So look at number 3 over here. We're going to say our old CM equals $100,000, and I can say my new CM is going to be equal to my 650 units times, and if you look over here, we decrease our selling price by $20, so that means my new CM is now $180. Remember, it was $200, decrease the selling price by 20, so now it becomes $180, gives us our $117. So we have an increase in CM equal to our $17,000. And then what we have, though, is minus our increase in fixed costs, which is given to us at $15,000. That means the increase in NOI is $2,000. Okay? And then finally, the last one right over here with number 4. We have our old CM, which equals our $100,000. And then remember what we have is our new CM is going to be equal to our 575, which is the number of bikes, times, and our new CM per unit is going to be our 185, because our variable expenses went up by $15, so it becomes 500 minus 315, which gives us 185. Okay, so this gives us our 106,375, which means our increase in CM equals 6,375. Okay, and then I have to say plus my decrease in fixed costs. Remember, that was our $6,000 decrease in salary. That gives us the increase in NOI equal to our 12,375. That is our profit impact, and you can see I take 32,375 minus the 20,000, and I get the 12,375. So again, kind of summarizing right over here, I'm running out of time on this lecture video. If the shortcut way doesn't make very much sense, just remember the profit equation, which is kind of doing it the long way, also solves the problem. But also remember how to calculate contribution margin per unit. That's our sales price minus our variable expenses per unit. As variable expenses per unit goes up, contribution margin per unit goes down. As the selling price is cut, contribution margin per unit also goes down. Thank you.